Gina, a troubled artist, is barely making ends meet. Gina, sorry to tell you, but we are downsizing and can no longer afford to keep you here. Gina felt her heart sink as she stood in the local grocery store, holding milk bottles and trying to hold back her tears. This was the second job she'd lost in a week, first the pizzeria, and now this. Fighting to keep her composure, she put the milk in the refrigerator and turned to Brad, her manager. If you start looking for employees again, you have my number. I've enjoyed working here. Unlike most people who hate their jobs, Gina had a lot of fun at the grocery store. She loved watching families come in, kids fighting over cereal and moms chasing after toddlers. It reminded her of the family she hadn't visited in a long time, as she was determined to make a name for herself before returning home. Gina wasn't working two jobs just for the money. She had a passion that no one knew about. On her way home, she ran into her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Maple. Since Mrs. Maple's husband had passed away, Gina had made it a point to bring her dinner every night. Tonight, it was just a can of beans and some bread, the best she could manage. Gina knocked on Mrs. Maple's door. She could hear the old woman's cane click against the floor. Mrs. Maple greeted her with a smile. You're back from the store early today. I told you those store managers would work you to the bone and still not be happy. It's a good thing you asked to leave early. Gina didn't have the heart to tell her that she had just been fired. Instead, she nodded politely and offered the tray to eat. By the time Gina got back to her small studio apartment, the food she had eaten had gone cold. She stared out the window at the graffiti on the wall across the street. Among the scribbles, she noticed a line painted in red. The universe always returns the favor of a kind heart. Inspired, Gina turned her attention to an empty canvas next to the window. Hours passed as she painted, ignoring the paint dripping from her fingertips. She painted a sky full of stars. A small lantern illuminated a lonely girl sitting in the middle of an empty street. The stars guided her, even though she didn't know where she was going. The universe was watching over her. Gina photographed the painting and quickly emailed. Her bedroom walls were covered in spray paint, and canvases lined the floor. Although she had never shown her art to anyone before, she had a secret dream that she would make something meaningful out of her passion. Every night after her shift, Gina wrote to her pen pal, a stranger with whom she had corresponded since high school. They had never exchanged names or personal details, but in the bustling city where people rarely stopped to notice each other, Gina found solace in her online friend. She attached a photo of her painting and the graffiti to the email, sharing her struggles and how she couldn't bear to tell Mrs. Mail about losing her job. The next morning, Gina eagerly checked her email, but there was nothing from her pen pal. For the first time in 5 years, they had failed to send a response, not even at Christmas or Thanksgiving. In the midst of her worries, her phone lit up with a message from her landlord. The rent was going up. Gina's heart sank as she realized she could no longer afford to live in the city, and might have to move back to her parents' hometown. Just as she was about to give up on her dreams, there was a knock at the door. When she opened it, she was confronted by a man wearing an expensive suit, a chauffeur's hat on his head, and white gloves on his hands. Everything about him seemed out of place in her part of town. I believe you are Miss Gina Wilson, he said, handing her a sealed envelope. Gina nodded, too stunned to speak, and watched as the man turned to leave. Wait, sir, who sent you here? What is this? She called after him. He smiled softly. Everything you need is in that envelope. I'm afraid I can't tell you more. And with that, he was gone. Gina carefully opened the envelope and began to read the letter inside. Before she was halfway through, tears filled her eyes. The letter detailed an unexpected gift, ownership of a New York penthouse, the keys to a downtown studio near her favorite coffee shop, and a large sum of money all in her name. But there was no clue as to who had given her this fortune. Hours passed and Gina still had no idea who her benefactor was. Sitting on the floor among her paintings, she decided to have another look at the letter. This time she noticed a small piece of writing on the back. Dear Gina, I hope this is all you need to make your dreams come true and then some. I hope you paint your heart out and never lack color in your life again. There was another line, scrawled as if in haste, in the bottom corner of the page. The universe always returns the favor of a kind heart. Suddenly it all made sense. Over the next few days, the chauffeur, Rebecca, returned to take Gina to her new penthouse. Over tea and scones, he explained the situation. Your pen pal, Gina, Rebecca began with a warm smile, was deeply moved by your kindness, resilience, and beautiful art. She has followed your journey from afar, witnessing you face difficulties with grace and compassion, always helping others. Rebecca paused to let Gina absorb this revelation. The gift of penthouse, the gallery, was to ensure that you could pursue your artistic passions without financial worry. A tear rolled down Gina's cheek. But why the anonymity? Why all the secrecy? Rebecca chuckled. Your pen pal believed your kindness was genuine, not motivated by recognition. You didn't want to change that. And maybe, he added with a wink, you enjoyed the mystery of being a secret benefactor. Gina understood now, and it brought her peace. It didn't matter who her pen pal really was anymore. What mattered was how much their friendship had meant to both of them. He also made me promise, Rebecca continued, to keep his identity a secret until you're ready. He thinks you'll know when the time comes. Gina nodded, grateful. She would honor her pen pal's wishes, continue to be pleasant, and focus on her art. She knew that good things happen to good people, and even if it seemed like nothing good was happening to her, that was never a reason to stop being a good person. So Gina did what she knew best. She fed Mrs. Maple, painted every day, and never stopped writing to her unknown savior, her pen pal. Even though she never heard back, she knew that the kindness in her heart had always been seen by the mystery figure and the universe itself.